education, public safety, healthcare, government, business. These and other important issues affecting our local community are identified and discussed with local and civic leaders here on Community Impact. Now with today's guest, here's our host, Jay Trelease.
Welcome to Community Impact. My guest today is Fabian Cousteau, a third-generation ocean explorer. He is also a filmmaker, and he has started a program called Plant to Fish. We're going to be talking about that. But first, let me welcome him to Community Impact. Fabian, great to have you.
Jay, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's just a blast. I mean, tell everybody we've been having more fun talking off air than really on air. But I have to tell you, I grew up watching your grandfather's specials on TV, and it was always a special event for the kids in my neighborhood because, you know, we'd wait for the special to come on, we'd watch it, we'd get so excited about what it was about, and then we'd play it. We'd pretend in the neighborhood, you know, that we were on the Calypso and we were going out on another adventure. I would imagine you must meet a lot of people, probably my age, who said that it was your grandfather that inspired them to pursue a life, you know, an aquatic life, a life pursuing, you know, things in the ocean.
Absolutely. I was one of those kids.
Really? You too? Did you see those specials?
It was a wonderful upbringing, and I do get a lot of people that were influenced. I mean, for over 50 years, he created 134 specials, documentaries that spanned around the world, that influenced hundreds of millions of people. And I do get a lot of folks who come up to me and say, oh, you know, I remember those Jacques Cousteau specials Sunday night at 8 p.m. and it really influenced me, and I wanted to be a marine biologist, or it led me to scuba diving or what have you.
Yeah, yeah. Was there ever a time in your life where you wanted to do something different? I mean, different than the family passion, so to speak.
We were never pigeonholed. We were never pushed into the family business. As a matter of fact, we were encouraged to see what else was out there.
Yeah.
So the passion for the oceans as third generation really came from just being immersed in those experiences and just falling in love with the ocean world.
Yeah, yeah. You told me earlier just a wonderful story about your grandfather, about how he would give you guys gifts, but it was always something educational. And tell us a little bit about it.
Well, my grandfather was obviously was a great storyteller, and one of the things that he loved doing was just teaching people new things. And one of the things, and this went to his grandchildren as well. My sister and I, we'd have Christmas or birthdays with our family, and he would sit down on the ground with us, crawling around, and he would, for example, I remember one Christmas he gave me a model, a wooden cutout of a dinosaur, a plesiosaur, and he would explain to me what the role of that dinosaur was in prehistory, what that meant in terms of us, and how that influences and so on and so forth. So he was able to tell a story of how human beings are part of this whole web of life.
Wow. I mean, my eyes are getting wide. I would imagine as a kid you were just, oh, wow. Yeah.
It was great, and he loved that. I mean, you know, as you know, I always say, children are my favorite human beings. And I think I got that from my grandfather, because he always loved working with children. And including his very own children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it was obvious just from the time he spent with us.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously you love kids as well, and I love that. Children are my favorite human beings.
They really are, because there are no boundaries. You know, everyone hears that they're sponges and so on and so forth, but there's no such thing, there's no such word in their vocabulary as impossible. You know, if you pose a problem to them, if you pose or give them a story, instead of saying, you know, losing hope and throwing up their arms and getting depressed, they say, oh, you know, I'm going to do something about it. And they come up with the craziest ideas. They come up with some of the most innovative solutions. And very often, they're right. And we should be paying more attention to them as far as solving the problems of the world.
Now, you mentioned the fact that your grandfather was a great storyteller. I think of it in terms of he was a great storyteller. I'm just thinking of it in terms of my life, but he was an educator. He was one of my teachers.
Yes.
I learned so much from watching his specials. It opened up, and I'm a kid from New Jersey. You know, maybe we go down the shore every once in a while.
Oh, you have
That's
beautiful
about
beaches on the
beautiful
shore.
beaches, yeah. But I mean, that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, and this whole new world opening up. Do you feel the same kind of, I guess, vocation to touch young people in that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, children obviously are our future, but more importantly, they know so much more about the planet than we did at their age. So they're already slated to be better stewards of our planet than we've been. So there's a great opportunity there to be able to encourage them, to support them in continuing on to pay attention to the planet and taking care of it. We have to do our very own part as adults as well, but it's really, it behooves everybody to support the education, not only STEM education, but the education of children to live with the planet rather than living on the planet.
And I would imagine that really connects to the Plant to Fish program in terms of getting people, not only young people, kids, but adults as well, just involved in the nitty gritty of actually doing something. Just they can actually do something as
Right.
opposed to just worry about it.
The key is hope. The key is hope, and we're as a species, and as a planet, we're facing some very fundamental and very heavy challenges due to our own hand mainly. And with that, we need to understand that although the challenges are great, there is hope out there, and there's a need to bolster that to understand what the solutions, or to implement what the solutions are. And with that, I created a nonprofit that is called Plant to Fish, as you mentioned.
I mean, plant a tree. Why not plant a fish?
That's exactly right. Why does restoration stop at the waterline? And it's about educating and engaging local communities and children into doing aquatic restoration in their own backyard. Whether it's a lake, a stream, the oceans, it's all connected. It's the universal connector. It's the circulatory system of life. Kids love getting involved because they want to be part of the solution. They want to be able to nurture the planet. It's not only a feel-good aspect, it's a wonderful learning opportunity, but it's also a vested interest. You know, you plant a tree, you have a vested interest in that tree growing and thriving and creating habitat and shade and everything else. It's the same thing with the oceans. It's just a matter of peeking below that blue veneer, having them get wet, get dirty, and understanding the integral connection we have with that place called the oceans.
Well, we've had a lot of fun talking about kids and our own childhoods and everything. But I mean, maybe it's a guy thing. But is there anything better than getting wet and dirty? I mean, especially when you're 8 years old.
Right. I took one of our. We have several initiative managers, and one of them has 2 young boys, and much to her dismay, I grabbed their hands and they asked, "Can we run through these mud puddles?" And I said, "Absolutely!" And so we ran through the mud puddles, went splashing around, got completely drenched and muddy. And she's looking at me in horror, going, "What are you doing to my kids? And I'm gonna have to clean them up." And we were laughing and having a great time. This is just magical.
Yeah.
Now transfer that to being able to do good for the planet, and there's nothing we can't do. You take, for example, the Tortugueros, the fishermen of El Salvador, who used to be the problem in the sea turtle decimation of that region, because they would take the eggs and sell them on the black market. So much so that there were no more sea turtles going back into the oceans. Well, in just 1 year, we were able to, thanks to support from companies like Rainbow Light, who are a nutritional supplement company, and all that, we're able to offer these programs to those fishermen so that instead of being the problem, they become the solution. Using their expertise now, they're gathering those nests and protecting them and guarding them and then releasing those sea turtles. Better yet, the aha moment, which blew my mind, was that they'd never seen a baby sea turtle. So they never made the connection between the adult sea turtle and the egg, right? And so when they released the sea turtles, they went, "Oh my God, now I understand why the sea turtles are not coming back." And they took the grandkids to do the same thing. And so now the grandkids and the kids are all, and the mothers and the daughters are all getting wet and dirty and releasing those sea turtles to the tune of 230,000 babies in beaches that never had zero just a year ago.
Yeah.
So we can do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a matter of thinking outside the box and involving communities.
Yeah, it's like you say, like planting a tree, you have a vested interest in that tree. You know, you change a situation like that around and give the people a vested interest in those sea turtles. And then all of a sudden it's their sea turtles.
Absolutely. And it's an investment in, of course, in time and emotion and some financial capital, but very little compared to what you get back. They're going to see those sea turtles come back 2, 3, 5, 15 years, 20, maybe 100 years down the road, come back on their beaches and nest and give the next offspring, the next generations a chance. Yeah,
I love the way you put it. The oceans are our circulatory system. Yeah. And we kind of talked about this off air. What is it? 70% of the human body is really water.
Just about, just as much as a rose.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see these water vessels, right, being able to think and be able to become philosophers or financial analysts, and all these complex thought patterns. They're all working around in our chemical soup between our ears, right? And this is all water. Water connects everything. It is the universal connector. The rivers and streams are the veins, and the oceans are really the blue heart of the planet. Yeah.
And how is our circulatory system these days?
Well, unfortunately, we're not quite at the life support life support system yet that it needs, but we've been treating it by and large as an endless resource in a garbage can. So it's no wonder that the oceans are at least as sick as land is. And with that said, what's happening in the oceans is happening to us. We were talking about tissue unloading of toxic chemicals. I recommend to anybody who's curious to do a body burden test and to see what's in your system. I'll venture to bet that you have flame retardants and all sorts of other chemicals in there that are endocrine disruptors and which are cancer-causing agents and so on and so forth that could definitely increase the likelihood of someone getting sick. Now imagine that on our planet today, anyone born, even the most remote area, is born with 250 man-made chemicals in their system, right off the bat. So it's definitely something to think about, because what gets washed into the oceans ends up in the food web. And when it ends up in the food web, it ends up on our plates and it ends up in us. So it really does matter what happens to the oceans, whether you live on the ocean front or 1,000 miles away.
Fabian, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and some other things. My guest, Fabian Cousteau. You're watching Community Impact. We'll be right back.
Giving to God's glory is giving that the light of the gospel may shine in a world lost in darkness. Our Lord said that He was the light that shines to dispel this darkness. He also declared that we who are His children are to be light in this world. Because of light, He said, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. The gospel in our lives ought always to shine. In every part of our lives, others should be able to clearly see that we are the reflection of our Lord. One way in which your life can shine for Christ is by sharing a love offering monthly to this listener-supported ministry, so that the light of the gospel can be sent over the air to illuminate the hearts and lives of those who tune in, those that are in darkness. Write today and send your offering to Family Radio, Oakland, California, 94621. That's Family Radio, Oakland, California, 94621. Thank you.
Welcome back to Community Impact. My guest today, Fabian Cousteau, third-generation ocean explorer. He's also a filmmaker. I want to talk a little bit about that. Sure. And also a wonderful program, and look it up on the internet, Plant to Fish, and we got to talk a little bit more about that, especially how that applies. Let's start with that, because there's so much to talk about.
Well, we'll start. I guess we'll start with the end, which is with the Plant to Fish is really kind of my personal answer to what people ask me all the time. So what can I do? What can I do? You know, oh my God, the world is in bad shape, and you know, I feel I need to do something, but I don't know what to do. And so I said, okay, really, you want to do something? Fine. Here are the things you can do at home. But if you want to do something really impactful, like planting a tree, you know, go beyond just eliminating the problem. Now we also have to fix what we broke, right?
Yeah.
Just like cutting down a rainforest, we have to replant that rainforest. Well, the oceans aren't any different. They're an alien world, but they still have mangrove trees, mangrove plants, which are trees right on the waterline. And those are the nurseries of the sea for things that we love to eat, for example, conch or lobster or what have you. How about corals? Those are rainforests. Those are the underwater cities that almost 73% of our aquatic species depend on for something in their lives, whether it's the nurseries or the spawning grounds or habitat or food source or what have you. It's like being in New York City, for example. What about oysters? What about sea turtles, the gardeners of the ocean? You know, those animals that go to sea grass beds or coral reefs and make sure that those are in a healthy state. It's really my personal give back to the planet. As I mentioned before, it's an all-volunteer organization, so we're all vested in this out of an investment, a personal investment, to making sure that our kids can inherit what we've taken for granted.
And that has manifested in a really neat way here locally on the Hudson River.
Yes.
Let's talk about the oysters of the Hudson River, because at one time, and you informed me of this, the Hudson River was known for its oysters worldwide.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Hudson River area was the largest oyster rookery in the world. Over 350 square miles of oyster reef. That's huge. Over 9 billion oysters. And the oyster trade was so popular around the world of Hudson River oysters that it created the financial foundation of what makes New York City today. So much so that unfortunately there aren't many oysters left in the Hudson River for a number of reasons, including the over resourcing of that. But also, of course, with the Industrial Revolution, there have been pollution issues. So now that we're in a state 20, 30 years down the road where some of those problems, especially the pollution problems, have been alleviated, there are opportunities to rebuild some of those oyster reefs, because they're the temperate water coral reefs of the area. They prevent erosion, they filter. Each adult oyster filters almost 50 gallons of water per day.
Wow.
So you could imagine 9 billion oysters must have made the Hudson River clear. You probably see down to the bottom.
Wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, oh boy.
I go diving in the Hudson for the Oyster Restoration Project, and right now you could see maybe a foot.
Wow.
It's dive by braille. But
Dive by.
the good news is I saw life at the bottom beyond the oysters that we were planting down there. I came down and I'm just about on the bottom, and I see the bottom moving, and it's not the current, which can be really bad in the Hudson, but it's moving in a strange pattern. I'm going closer and closer because it's only a foot of visibility and very green water, and all of a sudden I see 2 horseshoe crabs making love, piggybacking on themselves, and I didn't even know horseshoe crabs lived in the Hudson River. Those prehistoric animals, but they do.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a healthy enough system so that we can start fathoming, no pun intended, restoring the area.
Yeah, and I just want to say to all the kids out there, look up horseshoe crabs, because
they're neat.
They are such a, as you say, prehistoric. I mean, they are.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
They've been around for 400 million years.
That's from the dinosaur era, and they wash up on the Jersey Shore. So I mean, amazing. But that's fascinating. Just the fact that you've been in the Hudson River.
And I'm still here to tell the tale.
Yeah, it's still here to tell the tale. But the Plant-to-Fish program,
Yes.
and doing that in the Hudson and trying to get those oysters back into the Hudson. You said that you were planting them around Governor's Island?
So there's a program around Governor's Island with the New York Harbor School, for example, and there's another one on Bay Ridge Flats, which is off of Red Hook. And there are about a dozen locations with about just as many partners and sponsors and so on that are doing various aspects of the oyster restoration. Unfortunately, there's nothing going on right now, as far as I know, on the New Jersey side because of certain legislation. In their infinite wisdom, the powers that be decided that it was too much of a liability in case someone decided to eat one of those restored oysters and get sick and then sue the state for some reason. It's the mental framework of saying, you know what, I may get run over by a car today, so I'm not getting out of bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, maybe we can change that.
I think so. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, all these things
Yeah.
are temporary.
Yeah.
And if there's enough public support or public outcry to motivate our decision makers to allow for oyster restoration on the New Jersey
Yeah.
side, same body of water, then it can absolutely be done.
Absolutely.
We need to support and motivate our representation to the things that we want to have happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to make decisions that may or may not be logical.
Well, to me, it's, I mean, the function of the oysters that I learned, because you're here, you know, I mean, funneling 50 gallons of water, one oyster funneling 50 gallons of water a day. I mean, to me, it's like, let's get them in there. Let's
Sure.
get this river clean. It's another way that we can restore the river back to at least a close facsimile of what it used to be.
Oh, there definitely will reach, if that happens, you can reach a semblance of health or a balance. Now imagine, and this is only my theory, but if you have enough oysters in the Hudson River and they're filter feeders and they filter 50 gallons of water per day for their 12-year lifespan, imagine the kinds of things that they would absorb, right, from the water system that aren't necessarily organic, of course the organic stuff too, and then lock up in their shells. PCBs, PBDs, that sort of thing that float around that we don't want in the water column. Their calcium carbonate shells last 50 years or more. Now that is a fantastic sink to make sure that we've locked those things up so that they don't pollute the rest of the water system, our web of life, the seafood that we depend on.
Yeah, like I said, it's a win-win situation. It's just a great idea. How do we get people involved here locally? I know you have a website, but I'm thinking, boy, some science teachers in high schools, a way to get the kids involved. We've got this wonderful Plant an Oyster program. Let's get more programs like that, more Plant a Fish programs. That's our goal. That's my goal.
I like your goals. and that's actually, it's a very good question. I was on the phone yesterday with a teacher from a middle school on the Chesapeake that is doing just that. She called us up and I took the phone call because I met them at a conference down in Florida. And their middle schoolers are really wanting to ramp up an oyster program in their own schools. And whether it's middle school, high school, what have you, whether it's oysters or something else, it's absolutely doable. We definitely welcome the inquiries. Going to the website, of course, and hitting contact us and asking that question.
plantafish.com or org.
It's plantafish.org or .com or .net. It'll all come to us.
Okay.
And with that, we can work with the school to figure out, how do we fund it? How do we find the funding to do this? Which usually isn't a very big problem. We can find local sponsors or even national sponsors to help. What that entails, how we can work with the school system itself, to integrate it into the curriculum so that it becomes a teaching aid for the whole year. It happens to be a perfect amount of time because an oyster, before you can release it, is about 9 months or so. So you can raise it from spat, from baby oysters, which look like sand grains, and then grow it in your classroom and then put it back into the aquatic system where it will hopefully thrive and then multiply, and we're off to a good start.
I'm sorry, but that's way too cool.
Well, what's really cool is seeing what lives around oysters too. Because oysters are pretty sedentary, right? They're pretty neat because if you look at them, they're about 100 eyeballs looking back at you.
Are they really?
Yeah. If you look at the lip, they're a whole bunch. They're receptors, but they're basically eyeballs. And more importantly than that is all the things that live and crawl around oyster reefs. From crabs to jellies to fish to what have you. I mean, it's just a neat experience. It's a neat environment.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this off air, but I mean, I know that you really want to encourage people to take diving lessons.
Sure.
To actually go discover some of the places you've been, because really that will spark interest, won't it? I mean,
well, getting a diving certificate, excuse me, my French is now coming out.
Pardon is French.
Is easier than getting a driver's license.
Yeah.
It just requires a few nights a week. And then you're off to the races, and you can enjoy this 99% of the world's living space that up to now may have been out of your reach. And if you don't have an affinity for diving, or you might be afraid, take the first step. Go snorkeling, because peeking below that blue veneer will show you this fireworks display of life that's better than any sci-fi that you've ever seen on TV.
Yeah, I have not been diving, but I have been snorkeling, and I was able to do it down in Bermuda. And man, it's just one of the great experiences of my life. You know, you talk about a whole different. I mean, I'm telling Fabian Cousteau about.
Well, it gives a whole
I
different
was on vacation in Bermuda, Fabian. I remember one of my adventures.
There's some great adventures in Bermuda.
But,
that's just off the coast here.
Where do you love to dive?
Oh, my favorite dive is the next dive. You know,
Yeah.
there's always something to see, and that's what I love about the ocean world.
You get off when you're in the Hudson River just as much as you get somewhere else.
Oh man, some people may think I'm crazy. I may be certifiable, but it's you know, there's always something to see in every dive, and that includes the Hudson River or the New Jersey coast, or even going down to Bermuda or over to the Caribbean or the Pacific. I mean, you will have no lack of things that will stimulate your interest.
Yeah. Whole new world will open.
It is a whole new world. I mean, even seeing a hermit crab living in an old glass Coke bottle, for example, at the bottom is pretty neat.
That's so cool.
The battle, life and death struggle of an octopus and a mantis shrimp. I mean, that's so neat.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're lucky enough, you might see a shark swim by or a dolphin or something like that.
Yeah. Hopefully that shark will swim by. Fabian Cousteau, thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure.
What a pleasure. And it's plantofish.org.
Yes.
Wonderful program.
Thank you.
Just good luck with that. And I just think that's such a great program, especially here locally. Let's get everybody involved.
And remember one thing. This is our communal bank account, this planet. And if you eat a fish, plant a fish.
I like that. And on that note, thank you, sir. You've been watching Community Impact. We'll see you next week.
You've been watching Community Impact, a public affairs presentation exploring issues that are important to the community of West Milford and the surrounding area of Passaic County and New Jersey. Community Impact is a production of WFME Television of West Milford, New Jersey. The opinions expressed on this program are those of our guests and not necessarily the views of the staff and management of WFME and Family Television. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join us again next week at this same time for another edition of Community Impact.